Good morning again. Today I just wanted to kind of go over a little bit of skill using big rods and glass that likes to pop and crackle. You know, we all call it frit on a stick. There are many different manufacturers that make big rods. Double Helix makes a nice 8mm that I use when I'm doing a lot of different things. And even that one, if you take it cold and pop it right in the flame, it's going to pop. And you know, we all love our Double Helix and none of us wants to lose even a little bitty bit. There are other manufacturers that are famous for popping glass, and I learned on those and I found ways to make it work for me. So I want to show you that, because one of the other glasses that I love to use, actually several of the other glasses that I love to use, they only come in big thick rods. The Lauscha or Nella or Czech glass, the only ways to really make these things work efficiently without losing lots of glass is to preheat them. I have a rod warmer. You'll see them in a lot of videos, and they really help with 104. It's not so important with Boro, but with 104. This is one of my favorite glasses, and it's one of my last pieces because it's out of production. So I'm just going to punt heat up a little bit here so that you can, you know, we all know how to do this. This is how I extend and use my shorts so that I don't have a whole lot of them kicking around. This is a Lauscha color that I love. It's half pink, half clear, and like I said, it's out of production, which is really sad. But because this end is cool, I'm not going to pop it in the flame. Now that it's joined up like that, I'm going to take a minute and put it back in my rod heater, which is nice and warm. I usually let my rod heater warm my glass up for 10-15 minutes before I do anything with it. What I'm going to do instead is, this is another favorite of mine that is also Lauscha, but again comes in a big rod. This is a tricolor. You can see it's got rings of color. You can still get these in various glass colors. I think Flame Dame, and there's another one, carries this type of glass, and it's absolutely a delight to work with. You get some really neat effects. I use it for pendants and goddess beads and anything where I want a nice swirl. It's really kind of fun. So you can see that by pre-warming it, poof, I can use it right away. I know that this glass and the tubes and many other glasses, if you don't pre-warm it, frit on a stick. I have little pieces of frit all over the place, because Sim, even though it's at 4mm, Sim will also have a lot of poppy colors that they're beautiful, but if you don't pre-warm them, they pop off. So anytime you have a shocky rod, whether it's a big inconsistent Devarty rod, or whether it's a big Ornella rod, it doesn't really matter what it is. If you find that it's shocky and poppy, preheat it and it'll start working like butter. However, that heat only travels so far up the rod, and if you rush it, it'll still pop. And remember, if your bead release is letting go, it's because you're using the mandrel to pull the glass off the rod. That breaks bead release faster than anything else. That means you're not giving your glass time to get nice and warm. Rotate the fat rods so that all the sides are getting done. Rotate it, especially when you're working with multicolor or veiled glass or anything like that. Rotate it, swirl it, go back and forth, but you really have to heat the rod all the way around. And this one is probably getting up to where it's not really usable, so I'm going to quit and make a round bead here in a minute so you can see the colors. Also, this was an old glass, and as it sat in the rod warmer, it devitrified. Many of you have heard of EDP, the Evil Devitrifying Purple, which is currently out of production, but they're working on making more. It was apparently unsafe for the workers. Don't worry about devitrification. You can always fix it once you get going. The trick is to work that sort of glass cool and fast, and once the heat goes out of it, what we're going to do, see how it's losing its glow, and I know it's cool. It takes longer than the small rods. I put it back in my rod warmer, and it'll heat up the next 4 inches. But as far as devitrification goes, if your bead does devit, don't worry about it. Heat it up until you'll see it in the glass. It'll change and go smooth. And once you've got that, take it out. This is a very thick glass, as you can see. So I'm going to kind of turn things up. When you adjust your flame, take your bead out. You don't want to adjust your flame while your bead is in. You don't want to cook it. If it's really thick, if you move it into the candles, you'll see the glass start to burn. So you want to just give it the time that it needs. Change the angles, keep spinning it, get the whole thing molten, have your bead press nearby. I like to pre-warm my bead press. You don't need to. It's just something I do because my studio is usually very cold, and it kind of shocks the glass, and then I have to wait longer to heat it. So it's starting to get there. It's a really wonky shape. That's okay. That's what the rollers are for. There are some really nice rollers available out there. CG Beads is just one of them. This is an old one that I got somewhere along the line. I'm not sure who makes it, but I think it's Devardi. I've had it for years. I use it for marbles. I use it for round beads. I use it for everything. There we go. Coming into a nice shape. When you're using your shaper, remember that you're not using the shaper as in the whole thing to shape the bead. You're really just using the edges. I know that sounds really weird, and it's kind of hard to work that in your brain, but you're mostly using the edges. So there we go. You can see this bead isn't quite rolling well, but that's okay. I'm going to throw some clear on there and kind of round it out and bring out some of the colors. Let's see, this one will work. This is an Effetri. I can pop it right in the flame. We're all used to that. Turn my propane down just a little bit. My oxy up. Here we go. And I'm just going to quickly encase part of this bead so that the colors become magnified. Because it does like to devit a little bit, I'm going to keep it warm but not in the flame. You'll notice that I heat my 104 rods I wave them in the flame probably a lot longer than they need to be. That's the training from me working with big fat rods and a hothead for so long. I was kind of afraid to move up to the dual flame because I had nobody really to show me what I was doing. So I kind of winged it, and then I had it set up and was afraid to start it for a while, but eventually I got it. I had someone come out and really check my connections and make sure everything was safe. Now this clear will actually change the color underneath this one a little bit. I've learned that from experience. But even here where I'm rushing it, you try not to pull with the mandrel. You're painting your bead, especially with clear. You want to paint it by having the heat on the rod. You don't want to pull it off with the mandrel. There we go. That will protect this glass from devitrifying because I'm kind of rushing it along. Anyways, gist of the matter is big rods that pop and crack, you know, ivory. We all know that one. You put it in the flame and pops off all over the place. Turn your flame down, preheat your rods. It doesn't matter who makes it at that point, it will work for you. But you gotta preheat everything. Whether you use vermiculite, whether you use your kiln, whether you use a rod warmer, hair curler, it doesn't matter. Preheat those big rods and suddenly your entire color palette will expand. And it makes such a difference. Now, see how I'm using the smaller hole to bring my shape in? The end of the bead needs a little bit of help. So I'm going to help the glass migrate down to that end by heating up the end. Glass likes to flow to where the heat is, so I'm pushing that encasing down by just using the bottom, just heating the bottom, and you keep moving it, and when the time is right, put it in, shape the bottom. I did that a little hot, but it doesn't matter. There it is. Do the other side. And we're getting there. The point here is not about the bead. The point was about the big ones. So don't worry about it. I do want to remind people that April showers bring May flowers. So May is going to be a month where you might consider getting a flower bead press from someone somewhere. Doesn't matter if it's used, doesn't matter what. You do not have to have it, but it will be helpful because several of our demonstrations will involve different types of presses, including the bellflower press. Not so much so you can learn the bellflower, because we all know bellflowers are pretty easy with the press, but I'm personally going to be teaching you the different things you can do after the bellflower is made. It is just the stepping stone for me. Alright, so this little round is done. You know better how to work the fat and shocky rods. I'm going to let this cool and stick it in the kiln so that you'll be able to see it when it's done. If you get a chance to pick up some Lauscha, some Ornella, it's a different COE, you can't mix it. Sometimes you can, it depends on your kiln and your skill, but play with the big rods. Don't be afraid of the big rods, even the Duvardi. Don't worry about it, preheat it, you're good to go. And the colors are starting to come out. So you can see the swirls. And the encasing is keeping it from devitrifying. So there we go. Have a good day. Happy torching.